The first time the guy yelled, "Smile, sweetheart," I almost did it on instinct, like my face had learned the move before my brain could protest. It was a Wednesday evening, the kind where the sky held on to the day's warmth, but the sidewalks already had that damp, cooling smell like the city was exhaling. I had just stepped out of a little boutique that sold candles and earrings I could never justify buying at full price. My heels clicked. Not loud, not dramatic, just enough to make me feel present in my own body. I was 26. Tall enough that I'd learned to keep my shoulders relaxed so I wouldn't look like I was apologizing for the space I took up. Broad enough through the chest that some dresses sat on me like they were negotiating. My hair that night was a dark brown wig, shoulder length with a soft wave tucked behind one ear so the gold hoop could catch the light. I'd spent time on my makeup, the careful kind where you're not trying to be someone else, you're just trying to be clear about who you are. Concealer under my eyes, a little contour, eyeliner sharp enough to feel like a decision. Lipstick in a deep rose that made my mouth look like it belonged to me. My dress was simple, black, knee-length, short sleeves, fitted but not tight. A small purse big enough for my phone, keys, and the tiny emergency kit I carried because I'd learned the hard way that living openly meant planning for friction. I wasn't trying to fool anyone. I wasn't trying to invite anything. I was just presenting Femme the way I liked, the way that made the world feel less like it was scraping against my skin. Inns had texted me an hour earlier. "You still on for dinner?" I'd replied with a selfie from the store mirror. The lighting generous, my smile real. "On my way. Don't let them give away our table." She sent back 3 heart emojis and a photo of the menu with, "I already chose for you," written over it in bold markup. Inns was 28. Loud in the best way. The kind of woman who could talk to a stranger in line like they'd been friends for years, and could also look at you like a storm if you were trying to hurt someone she cared about. We'd been together long enough that she could tell the difference between my "I'm fine" and my "I'm fine," with the words clenched in my teeth. That night, I wasn't clenched. I was light. I was heading toward the street where the restaurant sat, thinking about spicy noodles and whether I'd regret ordering the cocktail with the fancy foam. That's when the voices hit me from the corner. 3 men stood outside a convenience store, leaning like they owned the cement. 2 were smoking. One held a phone up as if it were just part of his hand. They didn't look unusual. That was part of the problem. Harassment doesn't usually come with a warning label. "Smile, sweetheart," the first one called. My stomach tightened anyway, even as my mouth tried to do the old habit. "Don't cause a scene. Keep moving. Let it pass." "Hey, come on," another voice added. "Turn around. Let us see." I kept walking. I stared ahead like the sidewalk had become a mission. Behind me, a laugh, the rough kind that isn't joy. "It's a little knife." "Yo," the one with the phone said louder now. "Is that a dude?" The word dude landed like gum stuck to my shoe. Not dangerous on its own, but it made every next step feel contaminated. I didn't turn. I didn't respond. I kept walking, heels tapping, pretending my pulse wasn't sprinting. "Hey," someone shouted sharper. "Don't ignore us." I felt it then. The shift from performative to personal. Like my refusal to engage had offended them more than any insult ever could. I could sense them moving. One of them stepping off the corner. My brain started doing quick math. How far to the restaurant? How many people on this block? Which stores were open? Where the light was brightest? If I ran, would I trip? If I stopped, would that be worse? "Look at that," the smoker said. "He thinks he's too good." The phone guy followed a few steps behind me, not running, not grabbing, just close enough that his presence pressed on my back.
"Come on," he said.
"We just want to talk."
I knew that line.
Everyone knew that line. A car passed. The driver didn't look. A couple on the other side of the street glanced, and then looked away quick like they didn't want to catch whatever was happening. "Leave me alone," I said finally, voice steady, because I'd practiced steady. That got another laugh. "Oh, she speaks," the first one called. "Or he speaks, whatever." I forced myself not to speed up. Speeding up would show fear. Slowing down would invite them closer. I tried to keep my pace normal, like I wasn't a rabbit, and they weren't deciding whether to chase. The phone guy lifted his device higher. I could see my own silhouette reflected in the screen for a second, distorted by the angle. "Say hi," he said. "Tell TikTok what you are." My hands went cold, not because I thought I was going to die, but because humiliation has its own kind of threat. It's a social knife. It can cut your life open in public and leave you bleeding in ways nobody has to clean up. "Stop filming me," I said. "You can't tell me what to do on a public sidewalk," he replied like he'd been waiting to use the line. They were within arm's reach now, not touching, but close enough that if I moved wrong, if I slipped, if I turned, the situation could change fast. I spotted a coffee shop ahead. Lights on. People inside. My body angled toward it like a magnet. "Ah, she's running to get a latte," the smoker said. I went straight for the door, pushed it open, the bell above it chiming like a tiny alarm. The warmth inside hit me, the smell of espresso and sugar. A barista looked up, eyebrows lifting at my expression. "Hey," I said, breathless. "Can I just stand here a second?" The barista hesitated, then nodded, eyes flicking to the window. Outside, the three men lingered. The phone guy pressed his face close to the glass, smirking like a kid at an aquarium. "Come on out," he mouthed, and I hated that I could read his lips. My hands were shaking. I wrapped them around my purse strap until my knuckles hurt. The barista leaned in. "Do you know them?"
No.
"You want me to call someone?" I swallowed. "I'm meeting my partner. She's nearby." "Call her," the barista said, firm now. And I could have cried from the basic kindness of being taken seriously. I dialed ins with shaking fingers. She answered on the first ring. "Cole, I'm literally 2 blocks away." "Where are you?" "I'm the coffee shop on Mercer," I said. My voice cracked on the street name. "Some guys are outside." They followed me. There was a pause, not because she didn't understand, but because she was changing gears into something fierce. "I'm coming," she said. "Stay inside. Don't go out. Do you hear me?"
Yes.
"I'm calling you on speaker when I get there. Keep the line open." I stood near the counter, trying to breathe like a person, not like prey. The barista slid a cup of water toward me, without asking. "Thanks," I managed. Outside, the men didn't leave. They paced. They laughed. The phone kept rising. Recording. Recording. My mind did this awful thing where it tried to bargain with my dignity. If I went out and acted like it didn't bother me, maybe they'd stop. If I snapped back, maybe they'd escalate. If I waited too long, maybe they'd get bored. I hated that those were my options. The door opened hard enough to make the bell jangle violently. Ins walked in like the place belonged to her. She wore jeans and a white t-shirt and that leather jacket she'd had since college. Her hair was pulled back, face set. She didn't even look at me first. She looked through the window. "Oh, you've got to be kidding me," she said. "Ins," I whispered, my throat tight. She turned then, took in my shaking hands, the tightness around my eyes. Her face softened for half a second, and then it hardened again, aimed outward. She walked to the door. "Ins don't," I said, but my voice sounded small. She stopped, looked back at me. "I'm not going to fight them," she said, "but I'm not going to let them think you're alone." She opened the door and stepped just outside, not far, standing under the light above the entrance. Her body was a wall.
"Hey," she called loud.
"Back off." The men looked surprised, then amused. "Who's this?" the smoker said. "My partner," Ins replied. "And you're on camera." The phone guy laughed. "We're on camera like we care." Ins lifted her own phone, pointed it straight at them. "Smile," she said cold. "You're the stars tonight." That shifted something. Not enough to make them repent, but enough to make them reconsider effort. "Whatever," one muttered. "Freaks," another said like it was a punchline. They drifted back toward the convenience store, still talking, still laughing, but the focus had moved. Their attention span had limits. Their courage, too. Ins came back inside. She walked to me and took my hands gently, like she was trying not to startle a wild animal. "Are you hurt?" she asked. "No," I said, but my voice shook. "No, I'm rattled." Her jaw tightened. "We should report it." The word report made my stomach drop. In my head, reporting was for broken bones and stolen cars and things that had evidence, what I had felt invisible in the most public way. They didn't touch me, I said automatically. They followed you, Ins replied. They filmed you. They harassed you. That counts. I looked at the barista, who nodded like it did count. Ins squeezed my hands. I'm not letting them do that, and walk away feeling clever. I swallowed. I just want to go home.
We can, she said.
But we can also do this. Not tonight if you can't, but soon. The thing was, part of me wanted to forget it. Forget the sound of their laughter. Forget the way the phone lens had felt like a spotlight that could burn. Forget how quickly strangers had looked away. And another part of me, the stubborn part that had learned to put on lipstick and walk outside anyway, wanted to refuse the lesson they were trying to teach me. The lesson was stay inside, stay quiet, don't be visible. I breathed in, tasted coffee and fear.
Not tonight, I said.
Tomorrow. Ins nodded. Tomorrow. That night at home, I cleaned my makeup off slowly, like I was erasing a crime scene. I stared at my own face in the mirror as the eyeliner disappeared, as the lipstick turned into a smeared shadow, and then nothing. Ins sat on the edge of the bed behind me. You don't have to stop dressing like this, she said as if she'd read my thoughts. I know, I said, but my voice sounded like I was trying to convince myself. She watched me a moment. Do you want to talk? I shook my head. Then after a few seconds, I nodded. I hate how easy it was, I said. How fast it went from normal to that. Ins leaned forward, resting her chin on my shoulder.
It was Thumb, she said.
Not you. I closed my eyes. I keep thinking maybe I should have worn something different. Maybe I should have. No, she cut in firm. Don't do that to yourself. The next morning, the fear had cooled into something heavier. A kind of tired anger. It sat in my chest while I drank coffee. It followed me as I got dressed. I stood in my closet and stared at my clothes. There were my work shirts, my jeans, the version of me that could pass through the day unnoticed if I wanted. There were also my dresses and skirts, my blouses, my shoes, the pieces I chose when I wanted to be seen in the way that felt right. Ins leaned against the doorframe watching me. You can wear whatever you want, she said. I wanted to show up at the police station in sweatpants and invisibility to make myself easier to process. Like if I simplified myself, the world would treat me more gently. But I hated that impulse. I'm not going to go in full glam, I said, but I'm not going to erase myself either. I wore a soft gray sweater that fit close but not tight. Black jeans, ankle boots with a low heel. I put on light makeup, enough to feel like me, and a small pair of studs. My nails were still painted a muted mauve from the week before, and I left them that way. When we walked into the station, the air hit me like a disinfectant slap. Fluorescent lights, dull walls, a row of plastic chairs bolted to the floor. A television in the corner played the news with the sound off. Behind a thick pane of glass, an officer sat at a desk, looking bored and tired at the same time. A sign read, "Please have your ID ready." My stomach tightened again. Ins reached for my hand and threaded her fingers through mine. You don't have to do all the talking, she murmured. I know, I said. But the truth was it felt like I did. The incident had happened to me. The words had hit me. I was the one with the shaky memory of exactly which corner and which face. We stepped up to the window. The officer looked up. His name tag read Ramirez. What can I do for you? He asked. I took a breath. I want to file a report. I was harassed last night. Ramirez's gaze flicked over me. Not quick, not subtle. The kind of look people give when they're trying to decide where to place you in their head. Harassed how? He asked.
3 men followed me, I said.
They shouted at me. One of them filmed me. They didn't touch me, but it felt threatening. Ramirez tapped something on his keyboard. Where was this? I gave him the street names. He nodded slowly, like he was half listening. And your name? He asked. I told him. Cole. He looked at me again. Cole. He repeated like he was testing it. Yes. And your legal name? The question hit me wrong. Not because it was unusual to ask for official info, but because of the tone, like my name was a trick. That's my legal name, I said. Ramirez raised his eyebrows slightly. Okay, he said. ID. I slid my driver's license under the slot. He picked it up, then looked back at me. You look different, he said. I stared at him. It's still me. He gave a little shrug. All right, have a seat. Someone will take your statement. Ins leaned toward the microphone. Will that be you? Ramirez's eyes flicked to her. It'll be whoever's available. We'd like someone who has experience with harassment cases, Ins said, voice polite but tense. Ramirez's mouth tightened. Ma'am, you can either wait or you can leave. I felt my face heat. I squeezed Ins' hand, a silent request to hold fire. Not because she was wrong, but because I could already feel the exhaustion ahead like a hill. We sat. The plastic chair was cold against the backs of my legs. A man 2 seats away stared at us openly, then looked away when I looked back. Another person scrolled on their phone, like we didn't exist. Time stretched. 10 minutes, 20. My heart kept doing little spikes every time a door opened. Finally, Ramirez came around from behind the glass. He held a clipboard. Cole, he called. I stood. Ins stood with me. He led us into a small interview room. A metal table bolted to the floor. 2 chairs on one side, one on the other. A camera in the corner, the kind you don't know is recording until you remember you're in a police station. Ramirez sat and clicked his pen. All right, he said. Tell me what happened. I started from the beginning, leaving the boutique, the corner, the comments, the following, the filming, the coffee shop, Ins arriving, the men leaving. Ramirez wrote, but his eyes kept flicking up at me and not always at my face. Were you alone? He asked. Yes, until my partner came. And you were dressed like that? He asked. I blinked. Like what? He gestured vaguely toward my sweater, my nails. Like you know. Ins' chair scraped. What does that have to do with anything? Ramirez held up a hand. I'm just trying to get the full picture. The full picture is 3 men harassed him. Ins snapped. Write that down. Ramirez's eyes narrowed. Ma'am, if you want to answer for him, you can file your own report. I put a hand on Ins' arm. It's okay, I said, though it didn't feel okay. It felt like the room had shifted to put me on trial. Ramirez looked at me. Do you identify as male or female? He asked. I stared. Why? Because it matters, he said. For the report. Ins made a sound like a growl. I tried to keep my voice level. I'm Cole, I said. I'm a man who sometimes presents Femme. That's what happened. They targeted me because of it. Ramirez wrote something. So, you're a man, he said. And the way he said it felt like a correction, like he was stamping a label. I'm telling you what happened, I said. Can we focus on the suspects? What did they say exactly? He asked. I hesitated. The words felt dirty in my mouth. They called me sweetheart. They asked me to turn around. They asked if I was a dude. One told me to tell TikTok what I am. Ramirez's pen paused. TikTok. He repeated, almost amused. It wasn't funny, I said. He shrugged again. People say things. Ins leaned forward. They followed him. They filmed him without consent. That's not just people say things. Ramirez looked at her. Do you have the video? Did you get their faces? Ins held up her phone. I filmed them back. Not great quality, but you can see them. Ramirez's interest perked up slightly. All right, that's useful. Send it to our evidence email. He scribbled an address on a sticky note and slid it across. The handwriting was sloppy. Can you pull footage from the convenience store cameras? I asked. He blinked like he hadn't considered it. We can request it, he said slow. But if it's a private business, they don't have to cooperate. Can you at least try? Ins pressed. He sighed dramatic. Sure. He went back to his questions, but they kept sliding away from the incident and toward me like the report was a net, and I was the fish. What were you doing in that area? He asked. Walking to dinner, I said. Why were you alone? He asked. Because I was going to meet my partner, I said again. Do you do this often? He asked. Do what? He glanced at my nails again. Dress like this. I felt my throat tighten. I present Femme sometimes, I said. Yes. And you understand that can attract attention, he said. Ins' hand slammed the table. Are you blaming him right now? Ramirez's eyes went hard. Ma'am, watch your tone. Ins stood halfway out of her chair. No, you watch yours. You're not asking about the men. You're asking about his clothes like that's the problem. I stared at the table, my fingers twisting together. I could feel my energy draining through my shoes into the floor. Ramirez looked at me. Do you want to continue? He asked, and it sounded like a challenge, like a test, like if I quit, it would prove his point that this was all some drama I'd brought in for attention. I wanted to say yes. I wanted to say, keep writing.
Do your job.
Take it seriously. But my mouth felt full of cotton. In my head, I could hear the men outside the coffee shop laughing. I could hear Ramirez saying, people say things. In sat back down, shaking with anger. She looked at me, eyes wide, silently asking what I wanted. What I wanted was my couch, my blanket, the ability to wash the station smell off my skin. I don't know, I admitted, voice low. I'm tired. Ramirez nodded, as if that settled it. Look, he said, if nobody was touched, there's not much we can do. We can write it up as a disturbance.
You want that?
A disturbance? I repeated. The word felt like it shrank what had happened into something that belonged on a noise complaint.
It was harassment, I said.
Targeted harassment. Ramirez's pen tapped. Do you have their names?
No.
License plate? No. Then what do you want? He asked, impatience creeping in. In's eyes flashed. A report, she said. A paper trail. Patrols. Something. Ramirez leaned back. Ma'am, with respect, patrols aren't going to hang around because someone got their feelings hurt. My face went hot. My throat went tight. The phrase feelings hurt made the whole room tilt. Inz opened her mouth, and I knew she was about to say something that would get us escorted out.
I didn't want that.
I didn't want a scene. I didn't want to be the stereotype in somebody's story about why they didn't take people like me seriously. I wanted the system to just work for once without demanding that I become smaller. I reached for In's hand under the table. She squeezed back so hard it almost hurt. I think we should go, I said quietly. Ramirez looked pleased, like a problem had solved itself. All right, he said, already gathering his papers. If you change your mind, you can come back. I stared at him. Is there someone else I can talk to? I asked, surprising myself. He blinked. Like who? A supervisor? I said, my voice shaking but steady enough. Ramirez's mouth tightened. A supervisor isn't going to tell you anything different. I still want to request it, I said. He exhaled through his nose. They're busy. Please, I said, and the word tasted like sand. Ramirez stood. Wait here, he said like he was doing me a favor. He left the room. The door clicked shut. Inz turned to me, eyes blazing. Cole, I swear to God, she whispered. If he comes back in here with some nonsense, I'm going to lose it. I let out a breath that sounded like a laugh, but wasn't. I'm already lost, I said. She reached up and touched my cheek, careful. Hey, you did nothing wrong. I know, I said, but my body didn't fully believe it. My body still wanted to fold in on itself and become unnoticeable. There was a knock on the door. It opened. A woman stepped in, not in uniform. She wore a navy blazer over a gray shirt, jeans, and comfortable shoes. Her hair was pulled back in a low bun. She carried a folder, not a clipboard. She looked at me first, then at Inz. Her expression was calm in a way that didn't feel distant, like she'd practiced calm because she'd had to.
Hi, she said.
I'm Shay. Ramirez hovered behind her in the doorway, looking annoyed. Shay tilted her head slightly. I'm with the local victim advocacy program, she continued. I was in the lobby meeting with someone else, and I overheard some of what was being discussed. Are you okay with me sitting in? I blinked. I didn't know there was an advocacy program here. There is, Shay said, and there was a careful emphasis in her voice, like she was acknowledging that people often weren't told. She looked at Ramirez. Officer, do you mind giving us a moment? Ramirez's jaw tightened. I'm taking the report. She didn't flinch. And I'm here to support the person making it, she said. If that's a problem, we can ask for a supervisor now. Ramirez stared at her for a beat, then stepped back. Fine, he muttered. He stayed in the doorway, arms crossed like a sulking guard. Shay sat at the table, Not across from me like an interrogator, but angled slightly like we were on the same side of something. She placed her folder down. "I'm sorry," she said quietly, and the words weren't dramatic. They were simple, a small bridge. I swallowed hard. It's not life-threatening," I said like I needed to defend the fact that I was upset. She nodded. "It doesn't have to be life-threatening to matter," she replied. "Tell me what you need. Do you want to keep going with the report? Do you want to pause? Do you want a supervisor?" I looked at Inz. Her anger softened into relief, like someone had finally opened a window. "I want to file it properly," I said. "I want it to be about what happened, not about me being examined." Shay's eyes stayed on mine. "Okay," she said. "Then that's what we do." She turned to Ramirez. "Officer, what category are you entering this as?" Ramirez sighed. "Disturbance verbal." Shay's eyebrows rose slightly. "This sounds like targeted harassment with filming. Depending on jurisdiction, it can also be documented as a bias incident, even if it doesn't meet the criminal threshold. The classification matters for pattern tracking." Ramirez scoffed. "Pattern tracking?" Shay didn't rise to it. "Yes," she said. "Pattern tracking. If multiple reports come in from the same area, it informs patrol focus and community alerts. That's part of why people report even when an arrest is unlikely."
I felt something loosen in my chest.
This was what I'd been trying to say, but without the right words. Shay looked at me again. "Can you walk me through it one more time?" she asked. "Slowly. We'll get a clear timeline." I nodded. My voice shook at first, but she kept me anchored. "Start with where you were," she said. "I was leaving a boutique." I began and I gave the name, the address. "I was walking toward the restaurant on 5th. 3 men were outside the convenience store on Mercer and Pine." Shay wrote neatly, her pen moving with purpose. "Approximate time." "Around 7:15, I said. "What did they say?" she asked. I hesitated. "You don't have to repeat every word," Shay added quickly. "We can summarize without forcing you to relive it. But if there are key phrases that show threat or intent, we should capture those." "They called me sweetheart," I said. "They told me to turn around. One asked if I was a dude. One told me to tell TikTok what I am. They laughed and followed me." "Followed how far?" Shay asked. "Half a block," I said. "Maybe more. To the coffee shop." Shay nodded. "Did you feel you could safely leave the area?" "No," I admitted. "I went into the coffee shop because I didn't know what else to do." Shay wrote that down. "Did the coffee shop staff witness them outside?" "Yes," I said. "The barista saw them through the window." "Great," Shay said. "That's a witness. Not perfect, but it's something." Inz leaned in. "I recorded them when I arrived." Shay turned to her. "Do you still have the video?" "Yes." "Perfect," Shay said. "We'll attach that as evidence, officer. We should document that the reporting party has video of the individuals and that the officer can attempt to identify them." Ramirez shifted. "I told them to email it." Shay's tone stayed even. "Good. Let's make sure they receive confirmation and that it's logged under the case number." Ramirez's eyes narrowed. "There isn't a case number yet." Shay looked at him. "Then we create one," she said. For the first time since entering the station, I felt like the ground under me was solid enough to stand on. Shay continued, calm and precise, guiding the questions back to the men, back to the location, back to the behavior. "What did they look like?" she asked. I described them. The phone guy with a red hoodie and a shaved head. The smoker with a dark jacket and a thin beard. The third, shorter, wearing a cap and sneakers too clean to be old. "Any tattoos? Any distinctive marks?" she asked. I thought hard. The phone guy had a scar near his eyebrow. I said, "Like a line." She wrote it down. "Okay." She turned to Ramirez. "We should request camera footage from the convenience store and any nearby businesses," she said. "The sooner the better before it's overwritten." Ramirez sighed again, but he nodded. She glanced at me. "How are you feeling?" she asked quietly. "Tired," I said honestly. "I feel like I'm begging to be treated like a person." Shay's eyes softened. "I hear you," she said. "You're not asking for anything unreasonable." Ramirez cleared his throat, impatient. Are we done? In's hand tightened on mine again, but Shay lifted a finger gently, a nonverbal signal. I've got this. Almost. Shay said, one more thing, Cole. Do you want to request a supervisor review of how this report was handled initially? My stomach flipped. The idea of challenging the officer felt like poking a bigger bear. But then I remembered the way he'd said, feelings hurt. The way he'd looked at my nails like they were evidence. The way he'd turned the whole thing into a question about whether I'd brought it on myself. If I let that slide, I wasn't just protecting my own peace. I was also letting the next person sit in that chair and get the same treatment. I looked at In's. Her eyes were steady, not pushing, just present. I looked at Shay. She waited, not rushing me. Yes, I said, voice quiet but clear. I want a supervisor review. Ramirez's expression tightened. For what? Shay answered. For professionalism and relevance of questioning. She said the focus should be on the incident, not on personal commentary about presentation. If you're asking for demographics, it should be done respectfully and only as required for reporting. Ramirez scoffed. This is ridiculous. Shay's voice stayed level. It's standard procedure to allow a complaint, she said. The department can determine what they want to do with it. We're not here to argue. We're here to document. Ramirez stared at her, then at me like he couldn't decide which of us annoyed him more. Fine, he said. I'll get a sergeant. He left the room. As soon as he was gone, I exhaled so hard my shoulders sagged. I'm sorry, I said to Shay, because I didn't know what else to do with my gratitude. She shook her head. Don't apologize, she said. You're doing exactly what you're supposed to do, reporting harm. In's leaned back, rubbing her forehead. Thank you, she said to Shay, voice rough. I was about to explode. Shay offered a small smile. I can tell, she said. It's okay to be angry. It means you know this isn't right. The door opened again. A man in uniform stepped in, older than Ramirez, with graying hair and a calm face that looked like it had seen too much to be easily rattled. His name tag read SGT Gomez. Afternoon, he said. His gaze went to Shay. Shay, Sergeant. Shay replied. His eyes moved to me and In's. I understand there's concern about a report intake, he said. Not defensive, not overly apologetic either, just factual. Yes, Shay said. Cole is here to report targeted harassment and filming. The initial approach wasn't appropriate, and the report classification needs to reflect what happened. Gomez nodded slowly. He looked at me. Cole, can you tell me in your own words what happened? He asked. I did again. And this time it felt like my words landed somewhere. When I finished, Gomez nodded. That's harassment, he said simply. Even if there's no physical contact and the filming complicates it. We can't guarantee an outcome, but we can document it properly and follow up on camera requests. I felt my eyes sting, not because he was some hero, but because he was doing the bare minimum I'd been bracing myself not to receive. Gomez glanced at Ramirez, who stood in the doorway again, arms crossed. Officer, Gomez said, voice calm but firm. Why was this being entered as a disturbance? Ramirez shrugged. No assault, no names, no plates. It's verbal. Gomez's gaze held. Verbal harassment can still be documented as harassment, he said. And if there's indication it was motivated by perceived identity or presentation, we note that as well. Our job is to capture details, not editorialize. Ramirez's cheeks reddened slightly. Gomez turned back to me. Do you want a copy of the report when it's filed? He asked. Yes, I said quickly. Okay, he said. We'll provide the case number today. You can request a copy through records once it's processed. Shay leaned forward. And regarding the complaint, she said, Cole would like a supervisor review of the intake process. Gomez nodded. Understood, he said. He looked at me. I'm going to document your concern and forward it to the watch commander. That doesn't mean you'll get an immediate result, but it will be reviewed. I swallowed. Thank you, I said. Gomez nodded again. One more thing, he added, looking directly at Ramirez. Now, when asking demographic questions, keep it professional and relevant. No commentary about clothing. No suggesting someone invited harm by being visible. That's not how we do this. Ramirez muttered something under his breath. Gomez's voice sharpened slightly. Is that clear? Yes, Sergeant. Ramirez said louder. My shoulders loosened by a fraction. The rest of it was paperwork, but it was different now. The report had a number. The location details were clean. Shay made sure the coffee shop witness was noted. She made sure In's video was logged properly. She wrote down the exact evidence email confirmation process and told us to screenshot our sent message as proof. When we finally walked out of the station, the winter air hit my face like a reset button. In's exhaled hard. I'm proud of you, she said. I looked at her. For what? For not letting them bulldoze you, she replied. For not letting him make you feel like you were the problem. I glanced at Shay, who had walked out with us, hands in her blazer pockets. I didn't do it alone, I said. Shay shrugged lightly. You did the hardest part, she said. You showed up. Most people don't because the process can be rough. I laughed once, bitter. Rough is one word. Shay nodded. I know. We stood near the steps of the station. Cars passed. People moved along the sidewalk like this building wasn't full of other people's worst days. Shay handed me a card. This is my direct line, she said. If they don't follow up, if you need the report number again, if you want help filing a formal complaint, call me. I looked down at the card. Her name, her number, the logo of a local community advocacy group. Do you do this all the time? I asked. Her expression softened. Yes, she said, because it keeps happening. In's jaw tightened again. It shouldn't, she said. Shay nodded. No, it shouldn't. I hesitated. What do I do now? I asked, and I hated that the question sounded like I was asking permission to live. Shay's voice stayed calm. You did what you can with this incident, she said. Now you take care of yourself, and you build a plan for next time. Not because you should have to, but because preparation helps you stay in control. In's bristled. He shouldn't need a plan to go get dinner. He shouldn't, she agreed. But until the world behaves, we do what we can. That's not surrender. That's strategy. Something about the word strategy made my chest loosen. It wasn't blaming. It wasn't shrinking. It was practical. What kind of plan? I asked. Shay held up her fingers, counting lightly. 1. Share your location with someone you trust when you're out, especially at night, she said. 2. Identify safe places you can step into, like you did with the coffee shop. That was smart. 3. If someone is filming you, you can narrate calmly. You're filming me without consent. I am asking you to stop. I feel unsafe. It helps if the audio is captured. 4. If you can record back like Ins did, but prioritize getting to safety. 5. If you're comfortable, let businesses you frequent know you might need help. Some places will walk you to your car, call for assistance, things like that. I nodded slowly, absorbing it like a checklist that could anchor me. Shay looked at me and she added, document every incident. Even if you don't report immediately, write down date, time, location, descriptions. Patterns matter. Ins squeezed my shoulder. We'll do it, she said. We'll keep receipts. Shay's mouth curved in a small smile. Good. She looked at both of us. Also, if you go out presenting Femme or crossdressing or however you want to describe it, you deserve to do that without being treated like a spectacle. She said, if anyone in authority tries to make you pay for help with humiliation, you push back. You did that today. The word humiliation hit me and my throat tightened again, but this time it wasn't despair. It was recognition. Thank you, I said again, because I didn't have better words. Shay nodded. Take care, she said, and call me if you need anything. She walked away, disappearing into the flow of the city, like she hadn't just steadied the axis of my day. Ins and I got into her car. The heat blasted my hands, which were still cold. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The station sat behind us, a gray building that looked indifferent to everything that happened inside it. Ins broke the silence. I wanted to scream, she said. I wanted to flip the table and tell him exactly what I thought. I know, I said. I'm sorry, she added quickly, glancing at me. Not for being angry, for not being able to stop it from happening in the first place. I shook my head.
You did stop it, I said.
At the coffee shop. You showed up, she swallowed. Yeah, she said softly. I did. I stared out the window as we drove. The city looked the same as it always did. People carrying groceries, a bus hissing to a stop, a couple holding hands, but my body felt different inside it, like it was still bracing for impact. Back at home, I changed into sweatpants and an oversized hoodie. Not because I was ashamed of what I'd worn, but because my skin needed softness. Ins ordered takeout and put on a movie we both liked. Something predictable. Halfway through, she paused it and turned to me. How are you really? She asked. I stared at the pause screen at an actor's frozen smile. I feel tired, I said. And mad and embarrassed, which makes me mad because I didn't do anything to be embarrassed about. Ins nodded slowly.
They wanted you to feel that, she said.
I swallowed. And Ramirez wanted it too, I said. Maybe not consciously, but he acted like the price of help was me standing there and letting him pick me apart. In's hands clenched.
He was wrong, she said.
I know, I said, but it still got under my skin. She reached over and took my hand. That's normal, she said. It doesn't mean they won. I sat with that one a lot. I didn't want my life to be a scoreboard. Later, after Ins fell asleep, I lay awake and scrolled through my phone. I looked at the video she'd taken. The faces were blurry, but you could hear their voices. You could hear Ins saying, "Back off." You could hear the laughter. I watched it once, then put it away. I didn't want to feed it. Instead, I opened my notes app and typed, Wednesday 7:15 p.m. Mercer and Pine, 3 men, red hoodie filming, scar near eyebrow, convenience store corner, followed to coffee shop. I saved it. Then I saved Shay's number as Shay Advocate and pinned it. The next day, Shay texted me. Did you receive case number confirmation? If not, send me a screenshot of the email you sent with the video, and I can follow up. I stared at the message a long time. It felt strange, this simple thread of accountability, like I'd been handed a rope after falling into water. I replied with a screenshot. Thank you. We got the case number, but no confirmation from the evidence email yet. Got it, Shay wrote back. I'll check in with records and victim services. You're doing everything right. Everything right. I didn't know how to hold that. I'd spent so much time feeling like the world was waiting for me to do one thing wrong, so it could justify hurting me. Over the next week, the fear didn't vanish. It shifted. Some moments it was a quiet buzz. Other moments it surged. Like when I walked past a group of men laughing on a sidewalk and my muscles tightened before my mind could evaluate if they were even looking at me. Ins every time. She didn't try to convince me it was fine. She just stayed close. One Friday evening, she asked, Do you want to go out? My first instinct was no. My second was anger at the first. Where? I asked. The same restaurant, she said. Not to prove anything, just because their noodles are good. My stomach twisted. The same area meant the same corner, the same convenience store, the same block where the air had turned sharp. Ins watched my face. We don't have to, she said. We can stay in. I pictured the couch, the safety, the shrinking. I pictured the invisible wall building up around my life. I want to go, I said, surprising myself. But I want to do it smart. In's expression softened. Okay, she said. Smart. We made a plan. Not dramatic, just deliberate. We'd park closer. We'd walk on the brighter street. We'd go earlier when there were more people around. I shared my location with her, even though we were together, just because it felt like marking a line. I am not alone. I dressed that night in a soft green blouse and black jeans, a little mascara, a neutral lip. Not because I was hiding, but because I wanted to feel comfortable. My nails were still painted. I left them. Before we left, I looked at myself in the mirror. My face was mine, not a disguise. My body was mine, not an invitation. You ready? Ins asked from the doorway. I took a breath. Yeah, I said. I'm ready. On the drive over, my hands were steady on my lap. My heart was still fast, but it wasn't panicked. It was alert. We parked, walked. The city smelled like fried food and cold air. People moved around us. A group of teenagers laughed near a bus stop. An older couple walked a dog in a tiny sweater. As we approached Mercer and Pine, my eyes went to the corner. The convenience store was there. The sidewalk was there. The streetlight buzzed faintly like it always had, but the men weren't. It hit me then, unexpectedly, how much I'd been bracing for them to appear like ghosts summoned by my fear. How I'd imagined them waiting just because the memory existed. The corner was just a corner. The danger was not a permanent stain on the pavement. It was a thing that had happened, and it could happen again, but it didn't get to claim the whole map. Ins squeezed my hand. "You okay?" she murmured. "Yeah," I said, and for once the word felt true. We walked past the coffee shop. The barista from that night was working. They glanced up, recognized me, and gave a small nod. Not pity, not curiosity, just recognition. I nodded back. At the restaurant, we ate noodles and talked about normal things, a coworker drama of hers, a show we were watching, whether we should adopt a second cat. But every so often, I felt my mind drift to the station, to Ramirez's bored face, to the way he'd tried to turn my existence into a question. I remembered Shay sitting at the table, pen moving with purpose, making space where there had been none. After dinner, we walked back to the car. The night had deepened. The air was colder. At the corner near the convenience store, a man stood alone, scrolling on his phone. He looked up briefly as we passed, then looked away, uninterested. Just a person existing. My body didn't flinch. It didn't freeze. It stayed mine. When we got into the car, In started it and looked at me. "How do you feel?" she asked. I thought about it, about the fear still tucked in me like a bruise. About the anger that hadn't disappeared, but had sharpened into something useful. "I feel like I'm still tired," I said. "But I also feel steadier." In smiled a little. "Because you went back." "Not just that," I said. "Because I didn't let the station be the end of the story." She reached over and took my hand. "It's not the end," she said. A few days later, she called. "I wanted to update you," she said. "The report is filed under harassment with bias indicators noted as applicable. The video is logged. The supervisor review request was forwarded to the watch commander." My throat tightened. "So, it's actually in the system," I said. "Yes," she replied. "It's in the system that matters." I hesitated. "Do you think anything will happen?" I asked. Shay was honest. "I can't promise an outcome," she said. "But I can promise that you did not let it be erased, and you didn't let poor treatment be part of the price." I swallowed hard. "Thank you," I said again. "You're welcome," Shay replied. "And Cole." "Yeah." "If you ever walk into a place for help and they start making it about you instead of what happened to you, you can stop the conversation. You can ask for an advocate. You can ask for a supervisor. You can say, 'I want that question in writing.' You have options." I repeated the phrases quietly to myself, committing them to memory like a shield. After the call, I sat on my couch and stared at my hands. Mauve nails, slightly chipped now, still there. I thought about how easy it would have been to walk out of that station and never go back, to decide the world wasn't worth the trouble. But what I'd learned was something quieter and harder. Protection didn't have to mean retreat. It could mean preparation. It could mean asking for what you deserved and not settling for less. It could mean keeping your head up and your receipts ready. That night, I stood in my closet again. I ran my fingers over fabrics, cotton, satin, denim, pieces of myself that weren't costumes, just choices. I pulled out a dress I loved, navy with a soft neckline, and laid it across the bed. Not as a challenge to the world, not as a statement for anyone else, just because I wanted to wear it. Ins wandered in and leaned against the door frame, smiling. "That one?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. She crossed the room and kissed my forehead gently. "Okay," she said. "Then that's the one." As I got ready, I didn't pretend the fear was gone. I didn't pretend the world had changed overnight because a report had a number. But I did know this. Humiliation wasn't a fee I had to pay to be helped. And visibility wasn't a mistake I had to apologize for. When we stepped out into the night, my heels made that familiar sound on the pavement. Click, click, click. Not an invitation, not a dare, just proof that I was still here. Did you like the story? Hit that like button and tell me what you thought in the comments. Do you want to hear more stories? Subscribe and hit the bell. For exclusive content and early access, check out our Patreon. You can find the link in the description, or you can watch any of the videos shown on my right. Thank you for watching and see you in the next.